I'm getting a good deal of questions regarding my composing template, how I set it up, what's inside, and what am I doing that makes it work efficiently when juggling multiple projects as a professional film and TV composer. And that's what this video is all about. I'm going to share with you how my template is set up, which of my instruments are running through my main computer, and which ones run through my second computer, which I call my sample computer. Ultimately, the idea is that you'll finish the video with a list of ways you can hopefully improve your own template and workflow so that it serves you creatively and allows you to be more productive. If you enjoy this type of content, I just want to remind you that when you like a video, share a video, or comment, it always helps the channel immensely. It's free to do and literally allows me to keep sharing and creating free content just like this. So I really appreciate you doing that, and without further ado, let's dive in. So the first thing I'm going to point out is that I'm working in Nuendo. However, everything I'm about to show you works the same way in Cubase. If you're in Logic, again, the principles are pretty much the same, so it's less about what sequencer you're using and more about understanding the organization and automation aspects of the template. Also, I should note that this is what I call my master template, and basically it's the largest template I have, and what I'll typically do is if I take on a new television project, for example, I'll open up this template and I'll start by getting rid of absolutely anything and everything I just know that I will have no use for in that particular project. Let's start by looking at this workspace. I have my workspace split up into two sections, with the top area being dedicated to stuff like the video, dialogue, sound effects, and so on. And what I'll usually do is I'll just shrink the top section while I'm working so that it doesn't really bother me or get in the way. But that's where all this stuff is stored, so it's easily accessible when I want to use it. We're gonna go from the top of my template to the bottom, but before we can do that, we have to go all the way down to these stem buses. And the reason for that is that we're going to start here because the way I design this template is with the end in mind. So what does that mean? Basically, the last thing I do in my workflow is to print stems. And so knowing this, I basically created the whole template backwards. The first thing I did was decide how many stems I was going to have, what they would be, and by doing that first, it informed how I would build the rest of my template. For example, this has stems that go from letter A all the way to letter R, and this is what makes up those stems and what order they're in. So A are my low strings, B are my high strings, C are my short strings, D are the brass, E are the woodwinds, F are the pulses that are high, G are pulses that are low, H are my low percussion, while I is my high percussion, J are my accents or whooshes, so that's kind of like production effects, K is atmosphere, L pads, M piano, N is a drum set, O are risers and clusters, so that's like aleatoric string effects or anything. It can even be an electronic riser that goes up. P are my synth bass, Q are cymbals and crashes, and R are boomers and downers. So out of all the 600 tracks in this template, these all end up in these final stem buses. And that includes all the effect sends for each channel, which is what we're going to go over next. So basically with these global effects, every final stem bus has the following effects that are feeding into them. So that's going to be reverb 1, reverb 2, delay 1, and delay 2. And to be clear, what I mean by this is that stem bus A, which we already saw is for my low strings, right? That has its very own reverb 1, reverb 2, delay 1, and delay 2 running into that bus and that bus only. This is like a crucially important part as to what allows me to export stems so quickly. If a track is going to a specific bus, it is only sharing reverbs and delays that are associated with that bus. So now we'll go back up to my project instruments. At the top, we just looked at where everything's going to feed into at the bottom. So now we'll go top to bottom and look at how I've organized the actual instruments which are using these reverbs and global effects and which are sending into these stem buses. I know this can be a lot, so if you have questions, please just put them in the comments section and I'll try and get back to everybody to add any clarification where it might be needed. So the first thing here is my project specific folder. And basically the purpose of this is that every project is going to have specific instruments that are unique and signature to that film or series. And these sounds are very unlikely to be used with another project, so they really don't need to be in the master template. As a result, I will load these sounds here, and I will save this as its own template for the specific project where these instruments are going to be used over and over again. All of these libraries in this folder are hosted locally, so they're not using my secondary sample computer, which is processing mainly my orchestra stuff and stuff that is going to just sit in this template forever and isn't really going anywhere. A really important thing that I want to point out about these project-specific tracks is that they don't yet have instruments assigned to them. So they might have Contact or Zebra, but I haven't loaded the actual patches. However, what I have done is I've made sure that these are routed, as you can see here, to no target. So they actually have no bus that they're routed to. And there's a very specific reason for this. If I were to use, for example, this Contact instance, and I were to load in a string sound that is supposed to go to the high strings bus, right? It'd be very easy, especially during the creative process, to load a sound, start playing it, and basically just forget to route it. It would just be routed to the stereo out. If that were to happen, when I go to print my final stems, whatever I've performed in this track will not be part of those final stems. It will not be part of my final mix that gets sent out for review. And that's a very common thing to happen. In order to make it so that I do not make those mistakes, or so that people on my team do not make those mistakes, I have all of these project-specific instruments to route to no output, so that when I load something, I go to play it, and I can't hear it. And that is what's going to remind me, oh, right, I didn't route it. So I have to then open up the channel, and I'll say to route this to my piano. That's a really, really important thing. And so again, I've made these project-specific things here as a fail-safe. They don't have outputs, so that I don't forget to properly route an output once I add an instrument in. It's just a small detail, but it really helps to make it so that there are no mistakes on the final printing. In the super fast-paced environment that we work in, that's crucially important. So let's move on now to the project audio folder, which is right beneath my project instruments folder over here. This is kind of a similar thing as the project instruments folder, except this is for audio tracks. So in this case, I have audio tracks that I will use frequently, like a big hit as an accent, big low boom, whooshes or brass swells, different accents and things like that. So these are kind of set here to give me that, but as you can tell, I just have tons of free blank tracks. Again, not routed to a specific output, so that when I do add them, they get routed to the correct space. But they're there so that I can quickly just go to one of my folders here. If I just went to sounds, let's say that I just wanted to load in like a boom, JF low boom, just add it right here. No target. I'm going to put this under boomers and downers. And now it's super easy. I can just go in, and the boom is obviously right there. That kind of acts as the same thing as the project instrument section above it, except it's for the audio files that I like to use when composing. And if you watch another video that I have about composing faster, that's a big part of my process, is using toolkits and WAV files, not just MIDI instruments, for certain production techniques and for certain writing techniques. One thing I really need to point out though is the most important track in my project audio folder, and that is this track right here, which is Resample Record. And what does that do? Basically, what this has as an input, so that's the final master bus that everything runs through. Basically, I make that the input of this track, so that if I am playing an instrument, let me just give you an example, my violin legatos, right? I'm gonna enable record on this. So as you can see, that allows me to record from all of the instruments that are in this template. Every single instrument, because it runs to that final master bus, any single one of them can be recorded whenever I want. And the reason that I do that is simply so that I can take this WAV file and now I can manipulate it for sound design really, really easily. So for example, if I just were to, add thermal, we'll just add like black hole, Maybe we'll add portal. I have no idea what I'm doing, by the way. This just might be a terrible example, but it just shows you how that when we have the WAV file, we can do this. And then you know what? Because we're working with a WAV file, I'll show you that basically I'll resample it and go to project resample, and we'll do that so it stretches it out, right? Let's take this section here. I'm just gonna choose a really, really random setting on both thermal and portal. No clue what this will sound like, but maybe it'll be cool. It's actually not terrible for literally just clicking a couple of buttons. So that's just to give you an example of why the Resample Record track is in there and what it allows me to do by recording any instrument that's currently in the template. So with that said, from this point on, we're going to get into what is primarily being pulled from my second computer, or as I call it, the sample computer. And so these instruments are running off of Vienna Ensemble Pro for the most part. Unlike everything in the project-specific folder, these are permanently in my master template. So basically, I have an instance set up for every musical section that is offloaded onto my sample computer from my main rig. So for example, I have my strings, brass, percussion, synth pulse and pads, because they kind of come from the same world of instruments, atmospheres, textures, more pads, woodwinds, and runs, and stuff like that. Basically, all the orchestral stuff and everything that has a permanent home here. Here are my strings, and you're gonna hear me say Cinesamples a lot, because for orchestral stuff, I happen to really, really love Cinesamples. I have no endorsement from them. I have no endorsement from anybody. So basically, any company that I start just kind of oozing over because I love them so much, it's all genuine. They have no clue who I am, but here's the thing. So I'm using their Cinestrings core library, which we can check out over here. I just personally have found that for Cinestrings stuff, it's very, very playable, very easy. The mix is always really, really good. And we can just really quickly go in here. I have like barely any mixing being done here. I just kind of warm up the strings a very, very tiny bit. And if we keep going down here, you can see that I've got my legatos in their own folder. I've got tremolos in their own folder. I really, really hate key switches personally. So I'm not actually like playing and then programming key switches. Basically, I use the split patches and I load all of the individual stuff. And so if you're playing a legato string part and then it's supposed to switch to a tremolo, I literally will cut the MIDI file and then I will switch it onto a different track. And everything is also split out the same way it would be in the orchestra. So I go from top to bottom. I do violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, bass. I also then have tracks for the divisi of everything. So violin 1 divisi, 2 cello, and so on. And that's how I approach my string writing as well, which we can go over in a different video. So I don't want to bore you here, but basically I then have the same thing all the way down for solo strings. So we have solo string legato, solo string shorts, and again, all the articulations are split out into different individual tracks for ease of writing and stuff. So then we do a similar thing. We come to the brass. The monster brass, basically, I don't know a single composer that does not use this. It's just so freaking beefy. It sounds so good, and it really, really, I mean, they knocked it out of the park with that patch. I don't care how old it is, it sounds great. I have in another video where I mentioned that you should know your instruments, and this is why. This is a big template. I know all these instruments. When I write a scene, or I'm setting up a template for a specific project, like, I know what sounds I want to use for that moment or whatever. I just like think, oh, okay, I'm just gonna search, and I am going to find, you know, sweet plucks. And I just type in sweet and it brings me right to it. Really, really great feature, by the way, of Cubase that you can search like that. Of course, then you have drum kits. And that's already been mixed and is ready to go. That's going to my master drum bus right here. I've got obviously some decapitator on it, some Fairchild on it. If we look at the low percussion, I get a lot of use out of the Hans Zimmer library from Spitfire Audio. I really like the Surdos. like the low end hits. And basically, I just love those room tones, so I get a lot of use out of that. But I like these epic toms from 8Dio. So here's something I definitely think that we should point out is that, for example, these Cineperc drums right here, I've got these toms, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? The way Cineperc does toms is that they basically, every octave is a different tom. So I've loaded the patch 4 times, and what I do a lot of the time is if I'm gonna play a tom part, I will go, and then I will double that track, and basically I will just move it up an octave, so it'll be. But because I have these in different tracks, I can split the signal left and right, and then you have a nice stereo image. If you add a couple ticks so that the quantization is a bit off, that's gonna really help the production quality and how things sound all together. So that's a reason that I might load the same patch multiple times, but I will be panning it differently and using it for production quality in that sense. You've probably heard me talk about that library if you've watched other stuff on this channel. I just really love it. I think it sounds freaking great. So then we've got all of my pads over here. Dark Asylum is a cool one. I don't honestly remember where that comes from. There's just tons of stuff. I'm not going to play through every patch because, as you can see, there is just so much stuff in here. And all of it has been sort of EQ'd, adjusted, added with the appropriate amount of reverb and stuff. And again, that's to save time, so that all I need to do is I just need to remember, oh, you know what? This scene's kind of dark and eerie. I'm going to pull from Dark Asylum. I'm going to use that patch. And it's just ready to go. That's the most important thing that I'm trying to convey here. The last thing I'm going to point out are my VCAs. Basically, VCAs act like a volume knob for multiple tracks at once, and what I've done is organize my VCAs in the same exact way as my final stem buses. If you look at my main mixer, everything that is going to stem A, low strings, it's all running to VCA, A, low strings. Likewise, all individual channels that are running to stem B, so high strings, they also run to VCA B. This way, when I'm mixing and I need to make more headroom, I can very easily turn down entire stem groups without having to touch the actual stems. I have a lot more plans to release either more videos or PDFs regarding routing and other efficiency hacks for busy composers and music makers. So I just wanted to mention that if you want to receive those, they're totally free. Just go and sign up at modernmediacomposer.com and you'll be notified when they become available. So if you happen to be interested in learning even more about how I work efficiently as a composer, taking on exciting new projects, and basically being able to streamline my creative process, check out this video right here. It's everything I've learned to this point about composing efficiently for film and TV and video games. Thank you for watching. As always, I hope this was helpful.